What's up, y'all? What's up? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Maroon Bison Presents the Southern Comfort Podcast. I'm your boy, Big Rich.
Kevin Harris.
Kev, how you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good. I'm glad that the summer weather is here, but it's scorching.
You know those bugs that you hear, like when it's real hot as fuck outside? It's like, I call them heat bugs. They just make this like...
Yeah. We don't get cicadas in the South, right?
Cicadas.
Well,
yeah.
I used to them in Maryland. That's the South. But like they don't come in the deep South, do they?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's like a once every 10-year thing or something, or what?
Yeah. I know we had them a couple years ago. I think we had them during COVID.
Yeah. Well, that year, it was like the plague. I mean, I thought So everything, the seas rise, everything happened that year.
So I don't know if Dre did a cut, but we have a special guest in the building today.
We do.
And he was nodding his head, and I wanted to be like, boy, don't you nod. But that laugh, I mentioned him in episodes of the past.
Mm-hmm.
You guys will come accustomed to know that laugh, hear that laugh. I don't know if you'll appreciate the laugh. But he is my good brother. I consider him a little bro, a nephew, a son, a mentee, a best friend, cousin Skeeter, Ebenezer or Ebenezer. I want y'all to welcome Ebenezer Abolarin to the show. Good Reverend Doctor.
Whoa. We're not going all that way.
Former Mamba moment.
Former Mamba moment.
That's right. That's
Ebenezer is one of my former, just one of the people I've collected along my path, my journey. And Kevin and I have used them and worked with them on many races, and
You used them too?
Yes. I will say yes. I've abused them. We'll get into it. We'll tell stories.
There will be a lot of talk about that.
But Ebenezer, give us your quick spiel, your elevator pitch.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I want to appreciate both of y'all for inviting me onto the show.
Of course.
Thank you, Kevin. All the work that you do, continually to do in politics. I was fortunate enough to meet you through, our good friend Rich here. And, you've always been kind of like guiding light when I be going through stuff, and y'all know I be going through stuff. And Rich, I got love for you, brother. Road warrior, taking me around all through the places, treat me to some good food and give me the download. Now I appreciate all the guidance that you've given to me. And it plays a big factor into my story. I don't want to put that in the beginning spiel. We'll talk more about that a little bit later.
No, we're going to talk about
that in the beginning.
I mean, like in this, if you watch some of the episodes, we kind of generally start off with where you're from, kind of sort of your makeup, right? And you say you're from Atlanta, but we all know that you are not.
All right. Throughout this whole episode, I'm going to have to clarify some things that Rich does say. So y'all forgive this, but every time that it's been asked where I've been from, I've always said I'm on the west side, right beside Bankhead. And that is true. Okay. So you have Veterans Memorial, right? They had to change the name of Bankhead Highway. You know that. But you have Veterans Memorial that runs all the way into Mableton. And that's where I'm at. I grew up in Mableton, grew up to two African parents. Specifically, they came from Nigeria and were part of the Yoruba ethnic group. And so growing up.
What does all that mean for folks who don't know?
For what that means for folks that don't know, there's a lot of culture. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of richness that comes from that. And specifically, I'm very proud of my Yoruba heritage. I've even made sure to pass that on to my son, gave him a Yoruba name as well too, hoping that he carries that continually through this light. But yeah, I mean, the simple things like when I was growing up, one thing that I always remembered is my dad was like, never accept anything with your left hand. And it was, at first growing up here, you're taught a lot about a whole different set of things in culture. But when I drilled down with my dad about what that means, it was more so about like respect thing, right? Like, the left is kind of looked at differently in their culture. So that's disrespect if you come up and you accept something, a gift from them with your left hand.
What if you left-handed?
Hey, they corrected you.
Be ambidextrous.
Wow.
So apparently my dad, he told me that he was left-handed, but there's a way that you can make your kid sleep on your left, kind of like cancel that out and use your right hand from there.
Well, in Southern culture, they just
tie that bitch down.
Yeah, you just tie it down, you pop them, and tell them to stop doing it, and eventually the children catch on.
Similarities.
Yes.
Similarities.
Well, I mean, so you are a first generation?
Yeah, first generation African American. I am the third out of 4 children. 2 other brothers, 1 younger sister. And growing up here in Mableton, right beside Bankhead. Just want to clarify that.
No, there's no.
Growing up there, my parents really they endowed in me just like politics. They endowed in me society and different norms and stuff like that. I did face kind of, I would say, an ultimate clash being first generation and kind of dealing with learning American culture, goody mob, all those other things versus, African culture, which I was kind of taught to, and specifically, more so like Christianity in that aspect because my parents are pastors. So, it was a lot to kind of reckon with. I think it builds into a lot of my story. It also kind of builds into, some of my politics and some of the things that I've kind of learned over the years. I remember I'm going to digress here a little bit, but in college, there was this.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to University of West Georgia.
Okay.
Proud wolf.
Okay.
I do love that y'all went to HBCUs and that y'all shout that out, but also for, the Black folks that are PWIs. We still out here. We struggle in different areas, but I would say there was a African American literature class that we took, and I'm forgetting the title right now, but we had this huge discussion about the dichotomy of the Black man, specifically how, folks had to see themselves. They brought it up through this story of the mask, basically like, some folks believed like you always have to wear the mask, right? You had to be that Aunt Jemima. You had to be that person that's in front of the white person, like, hey, I'm good, let's go. And then some folks, they decided not to wear the mask, but then you were put into a certain part of the category. And then you have folks that, had to continually, take it off, put it back on, take it off, put it back on. So, I that resonated with me because I felt like a lot of that, I'm glad I took that class because through high school, elementary, and different things like that, I felt like I was not only dealing with, the mask of not just being a Black man in America, but specifically being an African in African American spaces, and also, in a white man's world.
It's interesting you talk about that whole dynamics, and we can still see it today in politics. I'm gonna put a pin and come right back to that. So both your parents are pastors. Your mama's also a nurse. And it's interesting because religion, Karl Marx called religion like an opiate to the masses. And a lot of times people use religion as a way to deflect from what's going on in the world. But growing up in that household with your parents being Nigerian, your parents being members of the clergy, How much pressure did that put on you to be something more? Right? Normally you hear a lot that Nigerian households push for you to be doctors or white collar professionals. And so for you to be in that space of politics, like kind of talk about like that whole.
Man, I'm glad that you brought that up because that was a whole kind of crazy story for me. I think like when I first grew up, I already gravitated towards what I wanted to do. For some weird reason, it revolved around being a hero. And maybe that was because of all the anime I was watching or all the cartoons.
I'm sorry, but what were you watching?
Anime.
Bullock?
Tina Turner?
No.
We love Tina Turner.
No,
Yeah,
like
anime.
like,
Anime Bullock, yeah. You watch it? Yeah. Anime Bullock.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Hey. That anime.
It takes me a while. See, that's the thing I was talking about. Y'all gonna have to give me a few minutes just something.
No, again, but that also talks to the number one influence in American households was TV's media.
Yeah.
Right. So you growing up in the 90s, like we're 80s babies, you're, just 5 years younger than us, but you're into that realm of more MTV anime. And I had to think twice about what anime is. And again, remind people.
So I'm gonna let y'all know right now, MTV was not played at my house.
Did you have cable?
We had cable.
Oh.
But it was constantly on CNN, Fox News. And then when we had the chance as the kids to watch the TV, that's when we went to like Cartoon Network and different things like that. Right. So it was, yeah. But going to your aspect of the question being, how was it for me growing up, and having to live up to kind of a certain aspect. I think that was a huge thing, right? Like, because my dad was a pastor, I still remember when I was young, people were like, Reverend, they would call me that. I'm like, oh, nah, I don't know about that. But, like, there was definitely that aspect that folks thought I would either transpire to be the same as my father. And then if I wasn't going to be that, there was the aspect of, well, are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be a doctor? Because those have the most when it comes to, I would say, economic return, prestige, and elevating the socioeconomic status of your family. And you see that a lot with a lot of African American families that are here. I told my dad, I remember first I wanted to be a firefighter. I used to play firefighter at church, build houses, climb up the chair, be like, I'm going to save you. And then I started watching some more movies and it switched to SWAT. I wanted to be police officer SWAT. And then it landed on military. And then I landed on wanting to be like a president. And that happened, I want to say all of this happened kind of like within 5 years, but it was really early. I know, like, when I talk to some other people, like, their career choices kind of changed throughout the years. But for me, I think within this short period of time, it kind of revolved around that same aspect. And again, I think it was like maybe the hero complex that was.
So when did you know what politics was and that was something you could be or do?
Well, I think number one, if you have black skin, you know what politics is. I mean, you have to do it every single day. It's the way that you get out of your house. Going back to the mask aspect, right? You have to know how to navigate your way through life, through situations when a lot of people are against you. And you also have to make sure that you're bringing back the resources to your family so that they can eat. and it's not going to be a lot. Sometimes it's going to be a lot. But to the other point, like I said, for our cable, the only channel that we would see when coming back from school was Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, and my dad would be there, and he would be, yelling at the
TV,
as something that George Bush did, or Republicans were doing. He was a huge fan of Bill Clinton. I would say like he wasn't like really politically in tuned in the manner that I am, and I think that y'all are as well too. He wasn't as politically in tuned as us, but he did have, knowledge of the certain policies and aspects that were affecting him personally, and the conversation that was happening. Also putting that with, he just came from Nigeria, not just came, but came from Nigeria, which is a country that in itself has a wide range when we talk about politics, dealing with colonization, dealing with coming out of colonization and forming themselves as a nation, being one of the largest economies in Africa, but yet facing so many different problems, and having to come to this country and seeing that he is doing a lot better than where he came from. And everyone knows that he's doing a lot better than where he came from. You also have that aspect that plays into the politics. And we were the only, so my mom and dad were the only ones of their family to be over here. So I don't have cousins. I didn't have uncles, aunties, none of that. Grandmas, none of that. They were all back home. So the conversation was constantly international calling back and forth, where, if something did happen in Nigeria, they would get on that. Then they would get onto the subject of, what was happening with the current administration over there and how that was. And so politics, I don't think that was never, ever a conversation within our family. It was always revolving in there. And I ended up gravitating a lot to it, looking at the struggle of what African Americans in America were facing, but specifically also what the African diaspora worldwide, what we faced and the challenges we faced when it comes to our socioeconomic status. And that's just looking at it worldwide. And so I remember going to my parents and I told my dad, I was like, yeah, I want to go into politics. And that's when he was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to support you in that. So, overall going back to it,
what did he think you meant? Did he think you meant I'm going to go run for office? Did he think that meant, because how like aware were they of careers and pathways and like politics as a profession, right? And some of this I went through too growing up, because in my family I'm the only one that does the type of stuff that I do. But I at least have one uncle. My uncle Ron is in politics and is an elected official, but he did that like later in life. But like growing up, I started out saying I was going to be a broadcast journalist. My family knew what that was, but like there was nobody to go ask about how do you do that, right?
People still don't realize that this is a career.
No one knows what I do.
Yeah.
Right.
In my family, not really. So like, what do you think he thought you meant when you said that? Or it didn't matter. He just basically told you shut up and no.
I'll say it definitely didn't matter. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it was like, yeah, he's going to run for like some type of office or be some elected official, which is, I won't say is not in the plans, but I think what he derived that whole aspect from was the fact that, looking back again from the country he came from in Nigeria, in politics, there's a lot of corruption that's there. There's a lot of, you don't really see people that go into that game with a good heart. And that's a multitude of factors.
Well, typically they do go in with a good heart. They come out corrupt.
I would agree with that. I think especially over there's folks that do go in with a good heart. I think what makes it different from like this aspect is there's way too much pressure for you to use the system in a way not to benefit others.
Yeah.
And to kind of delve in on that a little bit, because I think what makes it different from there, like, again, I talk about my Yoruba heritage. The Yoruba ethnic group, the Yoruba tribe.
Spell that? Yoruba, spell it.
Yoruba.
Just so people can.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. For those that don't know, it's Yoruba. The Yoruba tribe is really patriarchal, really kind of centered around what we call an Oba. And for the diehard Yorubas, just know I was born here. So like, if y'all come for me later, you could just correct if I miss anything, but specifically, I just want to put that out there because I know some folks are like,
it was at this moment Ebenezer went missing.
Right.
No, but there's usually like the big man is a word that people try and use, right? So like the big man is the person that takes care of things. Is your I'm trying to think of that movie with Denzel Washington, the American Gangster, yeah. Right? Like the person that kind of takes care of everything, right? Yeah. Not in the aspect of like selling drugs, but just being in that type of hierarchical status and importance. That's something that's really big within our culture. And so like when you have a culture that's already been developed like that for centuries and centuries, and then you add in the infrastructure of like the current world politics, but then you add in the fact that you're in a third world nation, and then you have these multinational corporations that are looking just for your resources, and they have enough resources to cover whatever you may want, plus some of the other people may want. The big man looks more of like a bigger opportunity for you, right? It's not that you don't want to do good. It's, I do want to provide. I'm going to provide for those folks that are good. But then thinking about the longer picture of like, this individual is overall not helping the best interests of not just my community, but the state and also this continent. And we have this resource that is very generous here, but still limited. And we need to leverage that even more than what we need to have it at right now.
So then you have that conversation with your father. He's basically like, don't want that for you. But obviously you keep going. So what becomes your first political job? And then the other question I would have too is, because that was some time ago, your first political job. Are you at a point now where like your dad kind of like gets it and it's like, okay, I understand what this is and I see the contribution he's making? Talk about that journey before to getting to the point where your dad's kind of like, okay, this is legit.
So, the thing that runs in our family is we stubborn headed. Very. So, even though he said that to me, I was very determined to, it's what I wanted. And like I said, I had developed my mind at this certain point where I was looking specifically at this goal and I wanted to achieve it.
Well, let's put a pause there because there's that factor of your two older brothers. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
And you and I have talked about this a lot at length, particularly you wanting to go into the military.
Yeah.
And how, because of your older brother's decisions, how that kind of impacted a lot of this as well.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say like the track that I had was I would graduate high school. I would get into the military. After getting into the military, I would also get into college, and then I would, start going into that political aspect. So I kind of linked the last two careers that I wanted, being like that military general and being that president, kind of together, because a lot of people that have been in positions of power have had military backgrounds from before. And so that was something that I saw could be a value add to me. For me, I made up my decision to, still continue down this path, and achieve, doing politics. I didn't tell him if I'm not mistaken, I don't think I told him that I signed up and my major was going to be political science. So
you just told him science.
Well, yeah, after you can't.
I'm a science major.
I'm going to be a scientist.
I'm going to be a scientist.
Well, and I'll even draw that back a little bit. I think actually pushing the fact like, oh yeah, I'll do military first and then do college and then do that. When I brought up the military and after my older brother leaving, that's when he kind of like was like changing tactics and was like, I need to shut down military and make sure he goes to college. And so I went to college, and then at that point, I chose political science, and he wasn't happy about it. But then, I had to I was, trying to get my grades up, and he was more worried about me just graduating college. I ended up graduating college, and he was happy about that. So, I think.
Now, we all know that it didn't really happen all that way. There was some ups and downs in college.
I mean, college was a difference for me because of, again, coming from the aspect of being that family, again, only my siblings and my parents here, we kind of isolated. Of course, we had our church family and there was other folks as well too, but specifically, I was already in this certain community of like Africans and other folks. And then you go to college and you're taken out of that and you're put into, here's the mini world for you to experience. And so like, for me, I think it was a little shocking because, there I don't have, I'm more fully adapted to American culture and those aspects. But, and I'm still trying to find out myself during that time. At the same time, I'm also studying, something that I really want and really desire to have. And I, I was learning a lot through my political science classes. I was learning so many different things. And eventually, I did make it out. Would I go through college again? It was a fun time.
I mean, what was, before we jump back in, what was your toughest, what do you think was your toughest thing you had to overcome in college? Particularly because you went to West Georgia. And also, what was your perception of places like Morehouse and Clark and like HBCU?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I should probably brought that in because, coming from high school, and thankfully, our high school had a counselor, that was able to counsel, and she was talking to me about college and what I was thinking about. And I had just actually left private school, and started high school in public. So I started half of my 9th grade year and ended up finishing out. And so thinking about where I wanted to go for college, one of the places she did mention to me was Morehouse. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. She was like, yeah, it's a HBCU. It's all male. And I think when she said the all male part, that's what kind of like was like, what? I did not know that Spelman was right there.
And Clark.
And so like, I didn't have all that knowledge.
Angie State. Angie Tech.
Well, I did know about Georgia State because my brother went there, and I also didn't want to be close to home, which was another aspect I would say. I wanted to be a little bit further away, so that way I could experience a little bit more of the world. Because when my brother was at Georgia State, he was also at home, so it was like there was no escaping it. It was, you know, you still back at the house. So I think it was the multitude of like, oh, it's all male. Plus, you know, it was kind of like in the city. I was like, But then the other thing too was at that point, I, looking at my grades and my SAT scores, at that point I was like, okay, well, who gonna take me? So I remember I wanted to, because the track again, I would say I wanted to be in politics, going towards the world leader aspect, and specifically more of like a international. I don't know why you roll your eyes, but an international.
It's an inside joke.
I mean, you like foreign affairs?
Yeah, foreign affairs, things of that nature, and Kennesaw had a really good international affairs program. I applied. I ended up not getting in there by a few points. And so West Georgia had written me back and they was like, yeah, we'll take you. That's how it went.
You went to, what high school did you go to?
Campbell High.
That's right.
Spartans, baby.
Did the predominantly, did the blackness of school scare you? Because, you know, being around all black people can be intimidating for people who didn't normally grow up in it.
I think it was definitely different because, so going even a little bit further back, I started off in public school, K through, I want to say second, third grade. And then my parents ended up taking me out and putting me into private school. At that private school, our family was the only black family there. Now, we did get joined by another black family, the Williams, good folks to this day. They ended up joining us there, but then they ended up leaving and going to that the public school that I ended up going to later on. But I think going back to public school at a higher level, where my brain formation is at a certain point, there were certain aspects and things I was a little bit more conscious of. I was conscious that I didn't have the certain lingo and slang that some of my peers did have. And I think like half of my 9th grade year, that's what I had to conquer. My name was definitely brought up. The fact that I was African was definitely brought up. So those were things that were actually, it was me. I still remember to this day, it was me and this other kid, Sade or Soda.
You can make a name up, it don't matter.
Nah, that's it. His name started with the S, but me and him were like the two Africans that were in the class. And so we was always getting roasted. But he had grown up through it all. So he had, I would say, probably maybe even a better
thicker skin
to it. And I was developing that thicker skin, but it was definitely something I was always conscious of and aware of as well.
Okay, now let's get back to, you being a scientist. A scientist of politics.
A political scientist. That's right.
He's a scientist. Ebenezer, a scientist.
So I get to West Georgia. I sign up for global affairs. And
for those who don't know, West Georgia is on the border of Alabama and Georgia. It is like literally 15 minutes away.
It's not on the border. There's
15 minutes away.
You still got Temple. You still got Bowdoin. You still got West Point. So you still got a little bit more mileage before you get to the border. But Carrollton is definitely a small place.
Where their necks are red and their feet are of burnttish dark material.
Y'all heard that from Richard McDaniel. So when he's in your town, y'all y'all let him know.
Then you address the mail appropriately.
No, Carrollton has a sweet place for me. I think one thing that I wasn't appreciative of until the time that I got there was the fact that there was actually an African-American community that was there.
Yes.
Already kind of out there.
Yes.
And actually there was some of those folks had uncles, aunties, and cousins all the way in Atlanta. They just ended up moving all the way out west. And so that was something I learned to kind of appreciate.
Well, as a lot of the projects in Atlanta began to start, getting phased out, they start moving out west because that's where a lot of Section 8 homes were being offered. And so you get into like Douglas County and Carroll County.
Yeah.
That's where they start matriculating out there.
I will say once Bankhead courts got closed, like, I mean, Douglasville, so you had a line, right? Like if you went west, you could go to like Mableton and maybe some other parts of Cobb, but that was it. And then after, a lot of the Section 8 closings, like you were talking about, like Douglasville became blacker. And I remember I went to the private school I told you all about was in Lithia Springs. Lithia Springs was not a place as a black person you wanted to kind of be in the 90s. It was kind of like...
Sounds nice.
The name sounds nice, but it was definitely, like there was some history there. But afterwards, again, the closing of these Section 8 housings, mass movings of folks to Douglasville. You got folks in Hiram. You got folks all the way now in Carrollton too. So yeah, there was a huge movement that I was able to see and appreciate a little bit later on as well too.
So let's enter this realm of you are now, having your feet dangle in the water of politics. What was your first introduction? First paid gig, first volunteer gig and first paid gig.
First volunteer gig was, so I graduated college. Again, my dad
as a scientist,
as a political scientist.
What year?
This was 2014.
Shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
God.
I know, right?
God.
Old.
Right.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. 2013?
2014.
Okay, go ahead.
2014. I stayed an extra year. We're not going to talk about it.
No. I'm doing our timeline of how we met in our head.
Okay. So after I graduated, at this point, my dad, he knew I graduated with, political science. So he was cool with it. He was good. At that point, it was kind of like get a job. So I was working at Six Flags, security officer, trying to get those bad kids together. And then I saw an opportunity on my Facebook. Actually, one of my friends that went to the college that I went to ended up posting a lot of different things on his Facebook about, politics and what he was doing and going to these fundraisers and stuff. And I was like, man, where you at? And so shout out to Brian Nunez, but he was like, yeah, man, I'm with the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. I was like, okay, all right. So how can I get involved? He sent me a Google by and I got that Google form. And once I got it, I filled it out and I got contacted. By, at the time it was Jenny and Ashley that were over there. And they were like, you've been accepted. And I was like, okay, cool. So I showed up. I was a finance intern. That was my first volunteer gig. Was a finance intern at the time. Stacey Abrams was minority leader, and Carolyn Hughley was the minority whip. Right. Now she's the minority leader.
We like to continue to educate our people. We get new listeners. So break all that down. What's the caucus?
Well, I'll let y'all know. I didn't even know what that was in the first place. I just showed up. I knew it was something to do with politics. I didn't know what a caucus was. And then when I was in the office, everybody kept on saying leader this, leader that. I was like, what y'all talking about? Why are y'all giving all this, title? But I learned that the caucus is basically the collection of all the House Democratic Caucus is the collection of Democrats elected to the state house in Georgia. So that's what makes up the caucus. And they are a body that pushes for certain policies to be enacted.
So Georgia legislature has two chambers.
There's a House side and there's a Senate side, just like your federal.
Okay.
And then you also have the executive. You also have the judiciary. The executive being the governor. And then judiciary, we have the Supreme Court also down here in Georgia as well too. Within the both sides of the legislature, on the House side and the Senate side, you have what are formed as caucuses. Again, caucuses are collections of individuals that believe in certain ideals and policies. And so we have two parties system here. You have Democrat, you have Republican. So you have a Democratic caucus, you have a Republican caucus on the House, and you also have it on the Senate side as well.
And whichever one has the majority of members serving in that body, they're either referred to as majority or minority.
That's correct. That's correct. So yes, they get the titles of majority, minority leaders, and the specifically in the role of minority leader, you have the chance of being the sole voice, the kind of person that is looked to as the voice of the caucus and the voice of those body of individuals that want to bring forth certain policies.
All right. And so in the caucus, your role is a finance assistant, associate?
So at that time, when I first started, I was a finance intern.
Okay.
I was a finance intern.
So you weren't getting paid?
I was not getting paid. All
right. And then from there?
And did you tell your father?
So
was that your only job at the time?
No, because I was still working at Six Flags.
Okay. So you didn't even mention this to him?
No, I did mention it to him. I was like, I got this opportunity, this volunteer opportunity. I'm doing it. And basically I would structure my days. I didn't spend no time in the house really, because at the time I was with my parents, but I spent the majority of my days like 8 o'clock, drove down to our office. I was working there from 8 to about 5, and then I had the night shift at Six Flags. And so did that till about 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then just redid it over and over.
No wonder you got feet problems now.
No, that's not the only problem. I do some rucking now. So
all right, so walk us through. Now this is 2013.
This was 2015, about a year and some change after I had finished getting my bachelor's degree. And so that was kind of like my first kind of gig. I then moved into the next year, ended up coming, and they invited me for my first paid gig, which was actually to be a legislative assistant in the minority leader's office.
Okay.
And so that part was where I learned more about like committee hearings, going to committees, bills, the bill process of how that happens. And specifically my goal going to these committees was taking notes at the committees of who was present, who wasn't present. Did they make changes to a certain bill or not? And then I would feed that up to the policy team so that they could be able to educate caucus members.
Okay.
After that, so we're 2016 now.
Now, so the role of the caucus has several roles, right?
Yeah.
On the legislating side, but then also on campaign side. What is the role of the caucus and the minority leader?
So, I mean, let me first back up. Session for Georgia is between the months of January through April every year. It's constitutionally mandated that we start at a certain time in January. It's not constitutionally mandated that we end at a certain time, but we are mandated to have 40 legislative days, which turns out that we usually end up after, or not after, but before the Masters is usually when we end up.
Now, what classifies as a legislative day? Because there are more than 40 days between January and April.
Well, the legislative day, that's made up from the majority caucus, really. They get to set the schedule of when they want to meet. They kind of get behind closed doors, talk about, how they want to structure the full session and what bills they kind of want to get out. Prioritize. And then they'll also set days. So legislative day is the day when we are actually gavelled into the chamber and we're talking about the bills, we're passing out bills or different things like that. You do have committee work days, which are specifically just regarded as folks come in and they go straight to committee, but that's not a legislative day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's go all the way up to where you and I get introduced.
Yeah. So I will say after that, I've been doing my musings around. I had worked on a few campaigns. I had done session, been the legislative assistant, and then I went into campaign season, didn't know what I was doing, still working at Six Flags until the time that I was working on a primary for this one Representative David Wilkerson. And then he was like, you know what, come on full time. And I was like, you know what, why not? I told my mom, I was like, hey, I'm about to take this jump.
Glory.
I told her I was about to take this jump. I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from. Like I'm getting paid by checks and, it was good money. And so, we prayed about it. And then, I was off to the races at that point. So I started doing campaigns. I did some for the House caucus side, and then I did some for, I did first for Democratic Party of Georgia, and then I came back to the House caucus because they were running a coordinated House district plan. I was stationed in Thomasville, Georgia,
which is
south, way south. Okay,
you went from the border of Alabama and Georgia.
I went from the border of Alabama and Florida to the border of Alabama and Florida. And just to give y'all kind of a sense, like Tallahassee, the capital of Florida, is about 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's about 30
you
minutes.
can make it in less than 30 minutes.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a straight shot.
Ain't no stoplights, so yeah.
Yeah, there's no stoplights. That's if you pay attention to them. But so that's where I was. And I remember specifically being down there working on a specific House race for a guy named Tommy Hill. And at the point, I was working alongside with him and the Democratic Party. And I remember that I was getting calls from the local Democratic Party about, hey, we need some Hillary signs down here. And actually, it was interesting because I was like, you know what? I wanted to make sure that I got them what they needed, so that way I could have some volunteers to help me with some doors. And so I made it a mission to go find me some Hillary signs. Now, the problem was I had called around all the surrounding counties. And so, again, going to the aspect of Thomasville being all the way down there, it being way south and it being the south, rural south, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of resources. We're far away from Atlanta. And so, campaigns, one thing that you can tell about a campaign is that if they're invested in certain places, you'll see that, especially if you're like in a rural area such as Thomasville. Not saying that she didn't have an operation, but I will just say from my aspect of being down there during that time, I wasn't able to get any signs at that time. I looked around to certain other places, and they other rural counties within Georgia, they didn't have signs. I actually reached out to Florida. They didn't have no signs.
No, they had signs.
They
Florida has, they just had signs.
They had signs for me. Yeah. And so
where you calling me from?
And I went to a rally. I'm forgetting who was down there, but I went to a rally and I was like, yeah, there's got to be signs over here. Gone. So at that point, I had reached out to one of my buddies, Jake Orvis, and I was like, man, I need some Hillary signs badly. And he was like, all right, man, you need to come up here. So it was a great chance for me to come back home, see the family. And when I got up there, that's when he introduced me to you and said, I want you to come meet my black dad. I was like, black dad? And Jake is a funny individual, but he real cool. He was just like, yeah, come meet my black dad. I was like, okay. And that's when I saw this very towering figure who didn't say a lot. He just looked at you.
Yeah.
And was just like, what you want?
Yeah.
I was like, can I get some signs, please?
Boy, what the fuck you want?
So, yeah, I was able to drive back with a bunch of signs,
which is like capital for him.
It was capital. It really helped me out a lot. And it was a short visit that I was able to do, but like being able to get up there and then through the connection of like knowing someone and then knowing someone else who I didn't know would play a major factor later on for me, like was really great. Anyways, 2016 ended. And from there, came back up to Atlanta. And that's when I kind of got into the routine of like, okay, legislative session during the first few months and then jump on a campaign afterwards. And that's how I can start making some bread and some living for myself. And so that's where we got more into contact, because towards the end of the legislative session, this was 2017 at this point, that's when the mayor's race was starting to happen. So I reached out to my boy Jake. He's like, yeah, man, Caesar's where it's at. We got Rich, he's over here. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And so
Caesar Mitchell. I remember that race.
So we're gonna put a pin. We're gonna pin this motherfucker right here.
I remember that race, because I couldn't remember, and we talk about this happening in politics like all the time. You forget why and where you met people and how you know people. So I couldn't remember the first time actually coming into contact with you and knowing you. I just know I've known you for years now. So that was the first thing we did together. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that was something.
All right. So so this is good. This is, as we always like to kind of break things up in two parts. One, to get our viewers up, but we want to give the respect to our guests, to one, hear their origin story, right? And how they got involved and sort of like their makeup and what makes them do this, but then get into like some nuts and bolts. So, we always end the episode with a Mamba moment, right? The Mamba mentality. Kobe is someone that Kevin and I like have the utmost respect for. His game on the court is sort of, we kind of model our careers, kind of off of that. And you said it yourself, like that hero mentality, right? That's another piece where we all kind of connect, because we are always there to be there when someone needs us. So we're going to give the floor to you to talk about your Mamba moment.
Oh, I get my Mamba moment now?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to correct the record on a last Mamba moment that was made. My son's head is not that big.
I mean, it's on you. I mean, you can bring a picture and let the people decide. And we did give that context. We didn't just say the baby got a big head. Then whatever we also said, well, the daddy got a big head. So like we gave, you know what I'm saying? This is not, Fox News. We gave the full, complete information.
You know what?
For next, the people to know.
I'm gonna bring my measuring tape so we can do measurings all the way.
Ebenezer's baby.
The Pepe. Yeah, so I would say for my Mamba moment, I would definitely have to give it up to y'all guys.
No.
And I don't want it to sound cliche, but really, honestly, the work that y'all are doing is important. I talked a little bit about like my dad and different things like that, but I think one key factor that's played a big role in where I'm at today is some African-American males, and their installation into me of like, again, we all had to go through this politics struggle just by being Black, you had to go through it. And I think that there was numerous times and numerous events where I've had to be like, how do I move around this situation? And y'all had the answer to it. And so I think it's important for other, African-American males of other generations or whatever you want to classify yourself as, make sure that you do have your folks that you can look up to, folks that are the same like you, that could be able to also instill in you those same aspects as well too. So my mama moment is for y'all.
Well,
and doing this too.
Well, I appreciate that, because like one of the things I always say too is we don't always do it that way, right? Like especially as like Black men, we are not always we're not always good to each other, and I think we've all definitely had different experiences where you got like the bad side of that, but I've always tried to just be intentional about not perpetuating that, just because that may have been some of my experiences. And so so you're definitely one of the folks that we saw that was just like younger and trying to start and come up into it, and you earned it. I mean, you're easy to pitch, you're easy to put on for something, because you come and you do the work. So kudos to you. And then I would say for me, for my Mamba moment, I actually was going to give it to your dad. And I've not met him. But in the conversation we were having today, you were just talking about like he could have been very inflexible, right? And that inflexibility really might have kept you from really living out, right, like your true passions, right? Your true dreams, and it was maybe different. Your father maybe didn't understand, right, all of it,
right.
But he still chose to kind of try to rock with you and let you go out and explore. So that not all parents do that,
right?
Yeah.
Right? Not all parents do that, and so I think he deserves credit as well, and a Mamba moment, because there are a lot of people that have benefited, and we're going to talk in the next episode about more of your current work and different issues and stuff like that. But a lot of people have benefited from a positive impact and contribution you made that may not have happened if your dad was just like, nah.
Yeah, 100%.
So shout out to Papa Abelarian. He is a character.
That's the short of it. That's the short.
Very much so. But this concludes our episode. Really appreciate you guys once again.
Mama moment.
I'm actually not gonna do one today. Well, you wanna know why? And he's going to hate this, but it's Kevin's birthday.
Oh God.
Oh
so,
yeah.
So
that's right. That's right.
My mom's moment is just happy birthday to my brother Kevin.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So
happy birthday, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Again, Ebenezer, let them know where they can find you, Instagram.
No, don't follow me on Instagram. Just if you see me in the street, say what's up. But yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Catch part 2.
He did so good.
So good.
So good. We was almost out the door. And, you know.
Mind you,
I mean,
he's
like,
going to get tagged.
I'm gonna let y'all know. Okay, all right. I got an Instagram. It's I am Ebenezer, but like honestly, like you don't see a lot of posting from me. I mean, I got my kid on there, my wife.
Yes,
stuff
they
like
can
that,
go confirm the head.
All right, yeah, y'all can go. But really, like,
Thank y'all.
honestly, I'm more with communication in person.
Thank y'all.
Let's connect.
See y'all on part 2.
Peace.